All right, in this video we are going to be multiplying decimals. Um, if you have the companion assignment that goes with this video, we're going to do the first 6 problems so you can follow along there. And if you don't have the companion assignment, then you will have 6 practice problems you can look at. If you don't have the companion assignment, I will write the problem down first, and I'll pause for a couple of seconds. And if you want to pause the video and try to solve the problem on your own, and then check your work whenever you get finished. And even if you do have the companion assignment, you still might want to do that just so um, just so you're learning the process. Because I know the temptation for a lot of times with these videos is just to copy what's on the screen, but that's not going to help you in the long run. So, all right, here we go. So our first problem is 1.8 times 3. Now, when we're multiplying decimals, whether we've got 2 decimals or a decimal and a whole number, we don't have to line the decimals up. So when we're adding and subtracting, we do, but when we're multiplying, we don't need to line up the decimals. That actually does not matter. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply just like we normally would, and we're just going to kind of ignore the decimal for right now. We're just going to pretend like it's not there, and then we'll come back and deal with it as our last step. All right, so 3 times 8 gives me 24, carrying my 2. 3 times 1 gives me 3 plus 2 is 5. And so I end up with 54. Now here's where we have to go back, because we've done our multiplication, so we kind of have to go back and look at um, where to put our decimal when we finish. Okay? So what we actually look at, and this one's pretty easy, we look at how many digits, how many numbers we have to the right of all the decimals we have in our problem. Now we're lucky in this one because we're multiplying by a whole number, so we've only got one decimal to look at, and there's only one number to the right of our decimal. So when we get down here, we only need to have one number to the right of our decimal, and so our decimal goes right here. Now, if you're estimating, and you can do this kind of in your head, especially with a problem like this, it's relatively simple. If you're estimating to check your answers, even if you're doing it on paper, if you're doing it in your head, this 1.8 is going to round to 2. And so we end up with 2 times 3, which gives us 6, which is very close to 5.4. A lot of times when we're dealing with decimals, our answers are going to be a little bit strange to us. They're going to be a little bit unusual. Depending on what kind of a decimal we're multiplying by. If we're multiplying by a decimal that's less than 1, which we will in our next problem, we're going to get kind of an unusual answer. So estimating here, that does give us kind of a good indication if we are on the right path, and we are on this one. Okay. All right, so let's go on to number 2. And number 2 is going to be 1.5, or 1 and 5 tenths, times 4 tenths. Okay, so first thing, we don't really need this 0. It's not going to serve us any function. I'm going to leave it for now because I want to show you why it doesn't really serve any purpose or function. Okay, so again, we're just going to kind of forget about our decimals for a second. We're not going to worry about them right now. They happen to line up, but they don't have to. They just kind of did because of the way the problem is set up. So let's do our multiplication. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry my 2. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 gives me 6. Now, here is the point where we don't care about the 0. Normally, if I'm multiplying a 2-digit number by a 2-digit number, once I finish with the first number, I'm going to put my placeholder down, and I'm actually going to do this in a different color because this doesn't matter, so I'm going to erase it in a second, but I just kind of want to show this to you. So we put our placeholder down, and then we multiply by this second number. So 5 times 0 gives me 0, 0 times 1 gives me 0. So this ends up really just being nothing. Sorry, the glare is covering my plus sign there. This ends up being nothing. And so adding nothing to the first product, the first partial product that I got, doesn't really help me at all. So what I realize is if I'm multiplying by a decimal that's less than 1, I don't need this 0. And I don't even have to really write it when I do the multiplication. It is perfectly okay to erase that 0 and just multiply it that way. So I'm going to go and erase this because again, we're not using it for anything. All right, so now that I've done my multiplication, I have to look back and see how many numbers did I multiply by that had decimal places, which they both did. They each had one number to the right of the decimal. This digit here and this digit here. So I had a total of 2. So when I'm placing my decimal, I've got to place it so that there are 2 numbers to the right of my decimal. So my decimal is going to go right here in front of the 6. And so I get 6/10 as my answer. All right. Now, what I was saying earlier about estimating, 1.5 is 1.5, and 0.4 is about a half. It's a little bit less than a half. So whatever answer that I get is going to be about half of this number, a little bit less. So half of this would be, um, if it was 15, half of it would be between 7 and 8. And so if it's less than half, the fact that I'm getting 6 as my answer that's pretty close. It may be a little strange though because I'm multiplying a larger number and getting a smaller number as my answer. But remember, when we're multiplying by a decimal, this is less than 1. So the number's going to shrink. It's going to get smaller. All right, on to number 3. So number 3 will be 2 and 37/100 times 7 and 2/10. And my decimals didn't line up here, but remember, they don't have to. All right, so I'm going to just treat this as a regular 3-digit by 2-digit multiplication problem. I'm going to ignore my decimals for the moment. All right, and when I get finished with my multiplication, I will come back and address my decimals. So 2 times 7 gives me 14. Carry my 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 2 times 2 gives me 4. Second digit, so I'm going to put my placeholder down. 7 times 7 is 49. Carry my 4. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25. Carry my 2. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. Do my addition. 4 plus 0 is 4. 7 plus 9 is 16. Carry my 1. 1 plus 4 plus 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 6 is 7. And 1 plus nothing is 1. Did I make an error here? Just checking my work here. No, I'm good. That seemed like a lot of digits, but it's okay. All right, so again, we're going to look at our decimals and see. We've got on our first number here, on our 2 and 37/100, we've got 2 numbers to the right of the decimal. And on our 7 and 2/10, we have 1 number to the right of the decimal. So our final answer needs to have 3 numbers to the right of the decimal. So I'm just going to count over 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to get 70 and 64 thousandths. 17 and 64 thousandths. know what? I see what I did. I actually wrote the problem down wrong. So if you're following along with the companion assignment, you're not going to be looking at the same problem. So we'll go back and do the real number 3 now. Hey, you got a freebie. Hopefully you did 2 and 37 hundredths times 7 and 2 tenths, because there's just a free practice problem. All right. And I got way off on that. Okay, so here's the real number 3. The real number 3 is 5 and 33 hundredths times 8 tenths. And I'm not going to write the 0 this time, because I told you before we didn't need it, so I'm not even going to write it this time. All right, we're going to do multiplication now. 8 times 3 is 24. Carry my 2. 8 times 3, 24, plus 2 is 26. Carry the 2. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 2 is 42. I have 2 numbers to the right of the decimal here, 1 number to the right of the decimal here. So I'm going to need to put my decimal 3 places from the right to the left. And so I end up with 4 and 264 thousandths. And again, if we're rounding, this number is going to round to 5. This 8 tenths will actually round to 1. And so I end up with, my estimation is 5 times 1, which gives me 5. And that's pretty close. Less than 1 away. All right, on to number 4. Number 4 is going to be 7 and 42 hundredths times 5 tenths. Now again, I'm not going to write the 0 because I don't need to. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Carry my 2. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 2 is 37. I've got 2 numbers to the right of the decimal here, 1 number to the right of the decimal here, so I need a total of 3. So 1, 2, 3 to the right of my decimal now, and my final answer is 3 and 71 hundredths. Because this 0 here, I don't need to rewrite it. I can leave it off. Now again, if I'm estimating here, this number is pretty close to 7. Now, when I multiply by 0.5, what I'm really doing is I'm really dividing that number in half, because 0.5 is half. So what I'm really doing here is I'm dividing 7 by 2. I'm splitting it in half. And so if I split 7 in half, I should get about 3.5 or 3.5, which is what I got. So again, this is another case where I'm multiplying a number by a number that's smaller than 1. So I'm going to get my product is going to be smaller than the number that I started with. But it's because I'm multiplying by a number less than 1. Okay. Let's very quickly do numbers 5 and 6. So number 5 is 2.37, or 2 and 37 hundredths, times 1 and 9 tenths. And again, if you're to this point, I really want you to try to pause the video, try to do it on your own, and then come back and check your work after you finish. All right, 9 times 7 gives me 63. Carry my 6. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 3, or excuse me, plus 6 is 33. Carry my 3. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 3 is 21. Second number, so I'm going to put my placeholder down, multiply by 1. 1 times 7 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. Add these up. 3 plus 0 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10, carrying my 1. 1 plus 1 plus 3 is 5. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 numbers to the right of my decimal in this one. 1 number to the right in this one. So I need a total of 3. And so my answer is 4 and 503 thousandths. All right, on to the last one. Or the last one on this video, I should say. If you're doing the companion assignment, you've got 12 more after this. Lucky you. All right, number 6. 3 and 8 tenths times 7 and 2 tenths. 2 times 8 is 16, carry my 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Put my placeholder down. 7 times 8 is 56, carry my 5. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 5 is 26. Add them up. 6 plus 0 is 6. 7 plus 6 is 13, carry my 1. 1 plus 6 is 7. 2 plus nothing is 2. 1 number to the right of the decimal on this one. 1 number to the right of the decimal on this one. So I need 2 numbers to the right of my decimal on my answer. And so my answer is 27 and 36 hundredths.